Well, let's take a look at this ongoing story now. The brutal murder and rape of Bredasdorp teen Anene Booysens has sent shockwaves throughout the country. Well, today we discuss the effects of any form of abuse. Well, joining us from our Cape Town studios is now Carlo Williams from Family and Marriage Society of South Africa. Very good morning to you, Carlo. Thank you so much for your time. Now, City Press editor Farrell Hafferty wrote, and I want to quote her, "Families don't remove the risk of rape, but they lessen it substantially." Your comments?
Well, good morning. You know, with the high incidence of rape and violence in our country, it's very disturbing. And, you know, at FAMSA, we work with families in restoring families and really introducing, for a lot of families, it's about introducing strong values and moral values into the families. And families and a sense of families go a long way in ending violence, domestic violence, sexual violence, and all forms of violence, but a lot more is needed to correct the wrongs that is happening in our country.
A lot of emphasis has been placed on educating young boys on how to treat women, but we're seeing a huge amount of absent fathers in the home. What effect does that have in violence in our society?
It has huge effects. We find in many households that fathers are absent physically, or even when they are at home, they are absent emotionally, and the youth of our country is exposed to just so much overwhelming pressure in a socio-economic sense, in terms of lack of sports, recreation, and leisure. And with absent fathers, without that strong role model in their lives, our youth is very vulnerable to become victims or to become perpetrators of crime. So that is my belief, one of the leading causes why incidents such as rape and violence is so prevalent in our country.
You know, Carlo, I was listening to a radio interview, and one of the callers said that the role of older or elderly women is also very substantial, because they are likely to say, when they hear reports of violence, they're likely to say, you know, hang in there, this is what marriage is all about, don't go and air your dirty laundry to the public or to the community. Are you finding that this has been your experience?
Yes, definitely. Secondary victimization is also very prevalent. And unfortunately, with comments like that, it protects the perpetrator. It leads to the victim or the survivor of such a violent crime to feel guilty, to feel that she or he can't speak out against it. And if you can't speak out against it, no one can support you. So instead of receiving the support and receiving the motivation to speak out against the crime and against the perpetrator, which in many cases could be a close relative or a close friend or someone that you know and that you walk past or you communicate with on an everyday basis, to remain silent about that, it is so dangerous and it is so painful. I can imagine that must be so painful for the survivor to remain silent about the crime that has been perpetrated against her.
Well, let's talk about the role of the community now. In more violent communities where we see more incidents of, say, for example, mob justice or criminal intent, etc., do you find that there is more domestic abuse in such communities?
Well, statistics do indicate that, and especially so in South Africa, where you know, it is not necessarily a disadvantaged community, therefore equals violence. You would find that even in affluent communities, there's violence and there's incidents of rape and domestic violence. But it's definitely a contributing factor towards these incidents of crime.
Thank you so much for your time. This is definitely a particular story that we'll have to engage in as far as national dialogue is concerned, an ongoing story there. Thank you so much, Carlo Williams. He's from Family and Marriage Society of South Africa.